Welcome to Beyond Wealth, Success Unscripted with Matt Calnan. Discover the personal drive, professional journeys, and business strategies that have made a real impact. It's success from the inside out.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we're chatting with Leah Diteljan. Leah is a transformative executive coach and retreat facilitator with 16 years of experience. Leah specializes in awakening emotional awareness and fostering personal growth among Fortune 100 and 500 CEOs, entrepreneurial organizations, young president organizations, and women president organizations. So welcome to the show, Leah. And do you want to start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing?
Sure. Thanks, Matt. It's so fun to be on a podcast with another Albertan. I was really inspired to start Mind Spa because you heard a little bit about my background, but because when I had the good fortune of traveling around to so many different countries, hearing these really inspiring and qualified, credible leaders talk about some of the really personal challenges in their lives. And it didn't matter if I was in Omaha, Nebraska. It didn't matter if I was in Bahrain in the Middle East, in Sydney, Australia. When they started to get into some of the things they experienced in their childhood that they maybe hadn't talked about before, and that wound opened up, I saw how lonely it really was. Because they spend so much time, we spend so much of our time really crafting belonging for the people in the companies that we've built, for our families, for our communities, even in the other ways we want to contribute our time and our resources. So I thought about, what is it like when this really influential, successful person opens that wound? What's the accountability and the care that they get to stay in that wound, to really heal it and not just cope with it?
Yeah.
And I wasn't really sure where that existed.
Very interesting. One of the things that this is a cliche, but they say, it's lonely at the top. And I think when you look at business leaders and especially of the bigger companies, but actually maybe not especially, maybe it's even more so of a smaller organization. I think that's definitely true, that it's tough when you don't necessarily have people to turn to because you are the one that people turn to. How do people cope with that? Or how do you help people work through those processes?
I find in the way that the world is right now that people, especially leaders, we just value the rational and logical mind so much more than our emotional mind.
Mhm.
And so oftentimes the exhaustion, the burnout, the overworking, the, desiring balance, all of those thoughts really come from spending way more time in our rational mind. And we're overthinking and underfeeling. And so that's what I really like to do with clients, is start to feel more and understand what it is like to be in a state of feeling, and marry that with the logical mind so that there's a partnership and kind of blending those two. I don't really believe in balance. That's kind of hard to achieve.
Yes. Or well, balance looks maybe different for everybody. And yeah, we try to achieve as close as we can to, but I don't think there's not many people in the world that would say that they're in the balance that they want.
Exactly.
What do you do with clients, and like when you're working with people, what does that look like? How are you trying to draw that out?
So for a one-on-one client engagement, we speak on a regular basis so that they're doing a lot of work in between our conversations every week. And so it's really curating something based on their own language or a belief or a thought that they have, and then digging into, where did this belief or thought even come from? Did you inherit it? Did you hear it from your uncle when you were younger? Are you making a lot of decisions based on replaying that belief over and over? And what if we try taking that belief and looking at it from different perspectives? What is that going to do for how you make your decisions and how you conduct yourself, and how you would then craft a conversation with somebody else to get to a different outcome that you're looking for? So it's very, very verbal based, and really looking at the mind-body connection in how they're showing up for themselves and how they're relating to others.
Yeah, I've heard from a lot of people actually that talk in this field about that. You're looking back, there's different levels of trauma in everybody's lives, and a lot of it goes back to the childhood side of things. What does that like if you go to the nature versus nurture argument, because like I'm a science kind of based guy, and a lot of the nature versus nurture would say, no, nature actually has like 80% impact of what your life is going to be versus the nurture. But what you're saying is really a lot of that nurture has major impacts into what's happening later on.
Hmm. Yeah, I think, I mean, I can speak for myself. Like I have had a pretty like incredible upbringing with very stable, secure, loyal, loving parents. And there's still stuff I have to sort through
Yeah.
despite all that nurturing. And there's still things that maybe they didn't love me in the way I wanted to be loved. So I didn't get nurtured in the way I wanted to, even though they had the absolute best intentions. And I think that's the exciting part is going through these conversations with a really intentional and deliberate guide is to really see, like, am I blaming my parents for some of the things that I'm doing now? Because that's a pretty dated perspective,
Hmm.
right? How is that showing up in my relationship with my executive team? Well, actually, my CFO reminds me of my dad. No wonder I talk to him like that. So it's things like that.
Interesting. And how do you draw that out of people? I assume that a lot, maybe I shouldn't assume this, but I assume that a lot of people that you talk to are um, less forthcoming up front, maybe, and you got to dig a little bit to get down there. Like, how does that get drawn out?
Sometimes it's pretty rare to meet people that aren't aware that they're going to start feeling when they talk to me. I think they know that up front.
That's fair. Yeah.
Sometimes they think they're quite open, and it takes a little bit to draw things out because, as many people know, we store emotional pain the same way as physical pain in our brain. So there is that kind of fear, not danger sort of aspect. I think it's kind of by mirroring the words that they use back at them and saying, "Hey, I just heard you say this." A very, very obvious sign to me if somebody's protecting themselves, that is a very subconscious habit that almost everyone does, is we start to talk in second person when we're talking about ourself if it's something that we don't really want to go into.
Really? Can
Yeah.
you give me an example of that?
So for example would be, so Matt, I'm writing a book right now, and there's a lot of things about my parents and my upbringing that are coming up in this book. And, sometimes your mom doesn't really say the things that you need when you're a young woman in puberty.
Hmm.
See what I just did there? And I
Interesting.
just
Yeah.
flipped it,
Yeah.
and that's to protect me from actually going there and feeling it.
Right. Because you don't want to say I.
Yeah. There's just such a
Okay.
different sensation that comes with that.
Yeah. You said something there about storing emotional pain and the brain the same as physical pain. And probably in your field, lots of people know that, but I didn't. And I'm sure a lot of other people didn't. Can you explain that? And like, what does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, please don't quiz me on the scientific parts of the brain or
Yeah.
anything like that. Essentially, the way that fear is triggered in our body, we're so trained now to protect ourselves, whether it's physical or emotional. It's because our brain hasn't developed from when we used to get chased when we were, actually in danger, years and years and years ago. And so now, when we don't know if it's fear or danger, we just automatically lock up. And that tension in our body and that fear response can really store the dense emotions that can really calcify and create bigger problems over time. So, I love, like, I think a great example is cold plunging, which is super trendy right now, right? My thing is when I go
Yeah.
in for cold plunge, and I do it a couple times a year, and that's good enough for me, is like I just go in and I chant to myself, like, fear not danger, fear not danger, fear not danger, fear not danger, because I get so angry and I know it's not going to hurt me.
Yeah.
And that just changes up the response that I have because I'm just being kinder and more compassionate instead of tense and angry and frustrated, which needs to get released.
Yeah. As a side note, those cold plunge things, I've heard they're phenomenal, and everybody that does them say they're great, and they're crazy. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure it's great, but oh my God, can you imagine doing that in the
Affectionately
morning?
psychopaths, right?
Yeah. Like I really enjoy a nice hot shower in the morning. I don't want to be cold. I don't want to freeze.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
Tell me about the retreat portion of your business. What do you do there?
Mhm. So there's a couple ways that I love to do retreats. One, sometimes different forum groups or executive teams will parachute me in, and I facilitate content that way that just plugs into the agenda that they already have. And the core of the content that I develop is always around deeper connection, trust building, self-awareness, and emotions. And so what does that look like from a team? So if it's an executive team, as an example, some people laugh because they'll see it on the agenda. Oh my God, how much appreciation and gratitude can we really do? And they always love it because we don't give enough acknowledgement and we don't give enough appreciation. And thank goodness for Gen Zs because they're really showing us we need more, right?
Yeah,
Love them for
they are
that.
much better at that. But
Yeah.
what is kind of the typical outcome? I have done some of that executive training, and I would be the person that looks at that on the agenda and goes, "Oh no, can I be sick for this portion of it?" But yeah, every time I've come out of it, it's been great. It's fantastic. So what is it doing to us when we go through that process?
Well, I like to say it's so important when we're creating an executive retreat is yes, to look at the ROI and how is that going to be effective, but to marry that with what I call the ROH, the return on heartbeats. How are we intentionally creating deeper connection that is not based on alcohol consumption? How are we having those challenging conversations about our insecurities, about past experiences that are elephants in the room and no one wants to touch, or just even asking for acknowledgement when somebody's gone above and beyond and maybe nobody even noticed it?
Hmm.
These are the type of things I like to bring people together on because it really builds more trust.
Yeah. Who in the organization, like if there's say an executive retreat like this, who in the organization is typically the ones or the one that is pushing for this? Is this usually like CEO led? Is it
Mm.
led from an HR perspective? What does that come from?
I love it when it comes from the CEO. And one of the first questions if a CEO wants to do the retreat with me is I always ask, okay, how much self-development have you had a coach before? Have you been to retreats before? If
Mm-hmm.
they don't have a lot of experience with it and they want to do a retreat right away, I actually suggest that we do one-on-one coaching first because it's very hard to do a retreat when it's directed, not modeled by the CEO. I can model it, but
Okay.
I'm not in the
Yeah.
organization. And
Yeah.
so, in order for longevity of this to really be ingrained in the culture, the CEO and the executive team need to model it.
Have you seen a shift? Well, that's probably a loaded question because I think it's an obvious one, but um, I'll ask it anyways. Have you seen a shift over the last whatever 5, 10, 20 years in people moving more into the emotional intelligence realm, and how many people are not there yet?
I can't give you specific numbers. I think a great example is if you're to walk into an Indigo or something and look at the
Mhm.
size of the self-help section now. It's massive.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
a wonderful thing is we're starting to pick up a similar vocabulary. Our awareness is evolving and heightening, so we're able to interrelate a little bit differently. I think just like any other topic though, if we're just consuming, we become more inundated with information rather than putting time into integrating it. That's where I think the bigger issue is with any
yeah,
sort of thing, but especially with self-development, because then we get a bunch of kind of know-it-all guru speak
yeah,
instead of
yeah.
I'm not actually teaching it, I'm just modeling it.
Yeah, it's interesting on the self-help stuff and when it comes to say mental health and things like that, because there was a stigma around it, and I think that's gone, or at least for the most part is gone, and people feel much more comfortable now and are encouraged to open up about those things, whereas even 20 years ago we weren't
Mhm.
encouraged that. I try to think, imagine you trying to do this in the 70s or the 80s. I don't think you'd have a business.
It'll
But
be
now
much
as
different, that's for sure.
yeah, but now as people have evolved, I think we're much more open and more importantly, I think we see the benefit of it, right? Like you talked about the return on investment, the return on heartbeat, all of that, but it is still a return on investment decision sometimes for businesses, and that does drive a lot of that. But I think there's so much value in the those intrinsic things that wasn't understood before.
Yes, I totally
Yeah.
agree.
Do you enjoy working more with individuals or with teams?
I love both. I mean, it's just such a beautiful harmony of having a regular week with lots of one-on-one clients, and then inevitably a couple retreats a month or so. It's a nice blend. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
And you wrote a book, is that right?
Yeah, I just contributed to an anthology actually, and I'm writing my own right now as well.
Okay,
Mhm.
can you tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. So it's a series actually called Lead Like a Woman, and the
Okay.
theme was tenacious. And so there's 16 of us from around North America, all female entrepreneurs. And my chapter is chapter 4, and it's called Let Her In. And her refers to present Leah, who I am right in this moment, who I'm no longer in the last moment where I just spoke. And so I take a different, maybe angle than people expect. I'm getting feedback about it being extremely brave, which I think I'm commonly described as, because it's talking about sexual and emotional needs being met at the same time. I think something that's happened in female leadership that's beautiful, and it's also really calibrated the way that business is we really had to swing the pendulum so far to one side in order to come back towards center.
Okay.
And being able to express what we need with confidence and with clarity and with alignment with our emotions without expecting somebody else to meet them is one of the most courageous things we can do right now as women. And we also get to do that by inviting men to do it as well. And honestly, I have probably, it's about 60-40 with men and women clients right now. So I don't want to say that women are just better at this than men, because we're not. It's actually
Mm,
changed quite a bit.
yeah.
It's just like throwing a baseball. You spend time in the backyard or you spend time in your journal, we're all going to get better at it. But
Yeah.
yeah, so
Okay.
the chapter is all about getting better at expressing ourselves.
Interesting. Very cool. And you said you're writing a book now. What's that going to be
Hmm.
about? Or can you not share that yet?
Yeah. Oh, I can totally share. Thanks. It's called Heal Leah, and it's a really is a also extremely personal book about my life. And the goal of it is that my life is a mirror to the audience. So they get to see themselves in my story, and they get to choose based on the emotions that they're feeling what they think the path forward would be for them. So it's a little bit of a choose your own adventure, but an adult version with empathy and emotions.
Cool. Very cool.
Mhm.
A few weeks ago, I interviewed a lady from Lethbridge named Tevi Legg, and her episode actually just aired today. And it was funny. I just texted her maybe 2 hours ago, and I said, I have to tell you, I'm like, all these people are sending me these messages, including a bunch of people that I don't know. I've never heard of them before. And they're texting me, and they were talking about how empowering she was. And she was talking very much like you about, I don't want to say feminism. It's not feminism. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but she wasn't coming at it from that approach. It was just about, powerful women and making decisions and doing these things. But yeah, I've had a lot of messages today just on that. So I think it's really cool to see that people are obviously impacted. And I think those people, I'm not one of these people that's brave enough to go and put my full story out there. I'm too shy for that. But I think when people are real and raw, there's a lot of value that is derived from people that look at that material, and probably a lot more than we even know, because this is just a podcast show that I don't know how they're listening to it or why they're listening to it, but all of a sudden I'm getting these messages on that. So I think it's
Mhm.
really cool when people like yourself do these things, because it affects people a lot more and a lot deeper than I think you probably even understand of it.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad she was a guest as well.
Yeah, no, it was very cool, very cool. You'd actually really like her. You guys should meet sometime. Maybe I'll give you that introduction.
That sounds great, Matt. Thank you.
So what else is going on in your life, whether it's personal or other business stuff, do you work with one client? Do you work with 40 clients at a time? What does that all look like?
I just take about a handful of one-on-one clients right now, but I do actually have a couple openings for people that really want to do some transformative emotional work that are in a position of leadership. And this summer, it's a little bit less busy from a work standpoint, which is on purpose, so I can do some more writing. At the end of the summer, I have a second annual retreat that I'm facilitating in Croatia. And
Wow, Croatia, cool.
it's totally last year was a bucket list, and so I'm so honored to go back. And we're on a super yacht for a week, and we're exploring the incredible Adriatic Sea and also ourselves and each other on this yacht. So a lot of my world is, yes, it's work focused, but it's so aligned from a personal standpoint too, that sometimes I get to step back and I make sure that I'm untethering my identity and my worthiness from my company, because that is work I do with clients too. And
Mhm.
so when you're saying what else is going on in your world, there's just so much white space and reflection time to integrate some of this work right now, which is so important. So for example, in May, I actually participated in a retreat, and I went to
Somebody
Copenhagen.
else's retreat.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I went to Copenhagen in Denmark,
cool.
and this award-winning academy director in theater put on this retreat on transformative encounters. So I was with actors and actresses because I really want to work on developing the way that my physicality can build relationship and sincerity, not just the cerebral aspect of me, which is so much more business focused. So, oh my God, Matt, I was so uncomfortable. Like the amount of
Yeah.
time I was staring into people's eyes without any rhyme or reason or direction was just like so far beyond what
Really?
I'm used
Really?
to. Yeah,
That's
it was really
cool.
wild. And then the backdrops were, I don't know why, it was like we were doing this graveyard hop. Like we started in a 12th century monastery, and then we ended up in a 17th century graveyard in the middle of Copenhagen. But so the energy was really cool to be around different contrasting things. But yeah, anyway, so I love throwing in at least one or two really uncomfortable experiences for myself every
Yeah.
year to push my emotional capacity,
Yeah.
so that I can really grow as well.
That is very cool. Very cool.
Mhm.
The Croatian retreat you did in Croatia last year as well, did you say?
Yeah, that's right.
And you're going back there. I've never been to
Yeah.
Croatia. I hear it's
Oh my
amazing.
gosh, get that higher on your list.
Yeah.
Seriously. Like I don't like to give advice and tell people what to do, but I was blown away. It's so safe, so
Mm,
beautiful. People are wonderful. Yeah, it's a really special place.
awesome. And what do those retreats look like from a structure standpoint? Are you're
Mm.
doing 3-4 hours a day of work and the rest you're hanging out, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so the one in Croatia, I think there's only a couple cabins left. This is a private experience though. But there's yoga first thing, so you can do sunrise yoga, and then we'll do a couple hours of content. Then we'll go to a different swim stop every day. So we go to a
Oh,
different
that
or
sounds
whatever.
tough.
So we just stop and we dock and we swim and we tan and whatever. And there's drinks. There's a full crew that takes care of us in the meals.
Yeah.
And then what's so special is the owner of this company that I'm contracted through, his family's actually from Croatia. So
Oh,
we'll go to the top of this abandoned village where he knows one of the families that still lives there, and they host an extremely special dinner for us. And
wow.
we're driving up the mountain. There's olive trees all around us. It's pretty great. So the history is just abundant and it's so beautiful.
And who's your target client? I don't want to call them clients, but who's your target clients for a trip like that?
Uh, that one specifically is for EO members, entrepreneurs organization members. Other
Can
retreats
you
that I
explain
have.
that? Sorry, can you just explain what that EO would be?
Yeah, so there's a couple different organizations that are exclusively for entrepreneurs, depending on their revenue earnings. Entrepreneurs Organization, I believe, is a million US, and then YPO Young Presidents Organization is 10 million US. And so these organizations are for medium, large size businesses. Some people say small, depends on the world where you are.
Yeah.
And it's peer-to-peer learning, access to experts, leadership opportunities, and it's just phenomenal organizations to really help entrepreneurs not feel alone.
Because it's a tough world as an
It
entrepreneur for
is.
sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so much more fun to do things together.
Yeah. And I don't think you woke up one day at age 8 and said, this is what I want to do. What was that journey like to get into this?
I used to get made fun of when I was in junior high school by my hockey girlfriends that I bring over to my house, and we just go for a pointless walk, as they called it. Like, Leah, I don't want to go for another pointless walk. And I'd take them down through the gully by my house by the river. and we just walk and chat because I just wanted to learn about them. And the
Yeah.
way that we open up when we're not looking directly at each other, but we're in motion, really evokes different types of conversations from people. So fast forward, I moved to Vancouver in 2017 and had already worked at the Entrepreneurs Organization for 10 years or so. I was like, it's time for me to start my own business. And so I started nature coaching, which was essentially getting a collective of friends together, putting exercises together as we go for a walk.
Yeah.
And my
So
parents.
they made fun of you for it back then, but now you're making money off of it.
Now it's the flagship product that's rolled into the retreats I curate. So yeah, absolutely.
You get the last laugh, right?
Exactly. It's like my
Awesome.
lemonade stand story.
Well, outside of the retreat coming up, what else is on the horizon for you? Whether it's the rest of 2024 or the next couple of years here.
Yeah, if people are interested in looking at some of the retreats that are more open to individuals that I curate, we're doing another one November 1st. The marketing will be up here soon. That's on the Sunshine Coast outside of Vancouver. It's November 1st to 4th, and it's just after Halloween. So the theme's embracing your shadow. So we go real deep into who you are and how that's helping you operate. In terms of the next couple years, my book's going to be published by the end of this year. I'd like to do a little bit of a speaking tour and then continuing doing more retreats, helping more one-on-one clients and companies, because I really do believe, like when I wake up in the morning, I want to live in a world where leaders are making decisions from a place of belonging and compassion and love instead of fear, insecurity, and inferiority.
Absolutely. No, that's great. If somebody wanted to reach out, connect with you, learn more about what you're doing, where would they find you?
Oh, I'd be honored to connect with you. Find me on LinkedIn. If you can spell my last name correctly, it'll be easy to find me anywhere.
Yeah. Good luck. Good luck. Luckily, it's going to be in the title of the podcast because they will not be able to spell your name outside of that.
It's true. It's true.
Okay,
Thanks,
that's awesome. Yeah, no, I really appreciated having you on the podcast today, and certainly wish the best of luck to everything moving forward for you. And I hope you have a great retreat in Croatia. I'm sure that'll be a really tough one to have to do those swims every day.
I know somebody's got to do it. Thanks, Matt.
Somebody's got to do it. Awesome. Thanks so much, Leah.
You've been listening to Beyond Wealth, Success Unscripted with Matt Calnan. Want to be our next guest? Visit beyondwealthpodcast.ca/guest. See you on the next episode.